Hi, class. Today we are talking about patterns and tables, and specifically looking at input output tables. More specifically, making them from a rule or a pattern. So, before we get started on the video, I want to show you an anchor chart that I made to help us remember and understand what we learned yesterday about input output tables. Here is the anchor chart that I'm talking about. And I'm going to. So if you look up here at the top, and you can copy this into your notebook, at any time you could pause the video that I made and write this down at your own speed. And that's an advantage of having this video. Look at how at the top I called it also a function table. That is algebra. And so, yes, we are continuing our journey with algebra. And I wrote down some steps to help you make an input output table and also how to handle if you have an input out, like say you have just the output and not the input and how to work. So let's take a look at this chart. First of all, at the top here, notice that I wrote two boxes. One box says increase, one box says decrease. When the table is increasing, which means the input is smaller than the output, that means that the output is increasing. You are going to have either adding or multiplying as an operation to get to the output. If your output is smaller than your input, that means you have a decreasing table, and a decreasing table is going to have an operation of either subtracting or dividing. And you can think about it's similar to the do you have a total? When you have a total, you have a large number. And so if you use that do you have a total chart, in your mind, you can think about that that would give you a decreasing pattern, and that would be subtracting or dividing. And then if you don't have a total, you get the increasing pattern, which is adding or multiplying. So let's get started. If you're making a table, the first thing you need to do is pay attention to the rule. So if you look down at the example, the rule is plus 11. Once I put in my input output chart tape like columns, I would put a column in the middle that says rule. So I would say input, rule, output to make my 3-column table. Also, you'll see it labeled as position for input. You'll see numerical expression, sometimes written for rule, and then you'll see value, sometimes written for output. So after you've read the rule and you create your input output table, it's time to apply the rule to solve. So if my first position is 1 and I know my rule, I would say 1 plus 11 is my numerical expression. And when I solve 1 plus 11, I get my value, which is 12. So then if I have a position in my input of 2, I can create a numerical expression using the rule, position, which is 2, plus 11, which is my rule, equals 13, which is my output. Now, you can keep on going for as many numbers as you want, but a lot of times the input or the position might skip around. So like if my input turns to 10, then I would do the same thing. I would have my input plus the rule 10 plus 11 equals 22. It works that way for any rule. And this is a table that you, or like an anchor chart that you can copy into your notebook to help guide you when you're solving these sort of problems. So now I want to watch the video that steps us through um, solving and making input output tables. I do have notes that go along with this. I will show you those notes. The learning target for today is I can create an input output chart that follows a given rule. So the topic is patterns and tables. And once we start the video, all of these notes will make sense. Some students love to write the notes first and then watch the video. Other students like to do the notebook as the video goes. That is going to be your choice. Remember, you can pause this video at any time and copy the notes. So good luck. Let's go ahead and start the video. So if you look at my notes, I wrote patterns and tables as the topic, and then in the notes section, I wrote how to find the rule and create a table from a pattern. And they gave us the pattern, which was blue bead, 3 yellow beads, blue bead, 3 yellow beads. And they told us what the rule was. They said the rule was times the number of blue beads by 3 to get the yellow beads. Let's go back to the video. And remember, at any time you can pause this particular video so that you can write the notes. So let's look at the notebook again. So I did write down numerical expression, and I wrote down 2 times 3. And then when I drew my input output table, you'll notice, I know mine's a little bit complicated. They have number of blue beads, number of yellow beads. I added a middle row called numerical expression. I really think that's very important because you can put your rule and it actually helps you kind of solve the problem. I also put the vocabulary, the academic vocabulary for this skill to the side to help you remember that the number of blue beads is our input, and that's the position in the table. You'll see it labeled this way sometimes. Then the numerical expression is the rule applied to the position. And then finally, the last row is the output, which is the number of yellow beads. You'll also see that labeled as value. And this is also how you know your pattern. So that's why I have so many extra boxes is so that you can see how the academic vocabulary is applied to the input output table. I would suggest copying all of that because then if you notice in the terms, I have rule, numerical expression, input output table, pattern. Those are all extremely important vocabulary words in this skill. Let's go back to the video and watch them build this input output table. Well, after you've got your positions in place, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's time to apply your rule. Well, we have to apply our rule. If you go back to our chart, you will see that I applied the rule to each position. So the position of 1, the numerical expression was 1 times 3. And then the value was 3 for the number of yellow beads. I go through my chart. 2 is my position, 2 times 3 is my numerical expression, and then when I solve that, I get 6, which is my output. And I go through and I do that for each position all the way through 5. Go ahead and do that. Let's watch the rest of our video. Okay, so when we look at this, the pattern is the output. So right here, this bottom row is our pattern. And I did write that down in our notebook page so that you have an example of how to create a table with a rule all the way to the pattern that that table creates. So if you notice here, I took my outputs and I wrote them down with a comma in between. So my pattern is 3, comma 6, comma 9, comma 12, comma 15. I wrote the commas to separate the numbers so they don't get confused and look like more like a bigger number. Also, I like to write a summary of what we're doing. The good thing is at the end of every video, they give you a summary of the lesson, and that is just good teaching. So, my summary is a rule can be used to make an input output table from a pattern. So, let's go ahead and finish the video. Okay, so let's go back to our notes. If you haven't finished copying this, I would. It's always good to have a like page or in notes that you can go back to help you when you're doing independent practice or review. So make sure that you've copied this into your notebook. Also, I just want to remind you of our learning target for today. It was I can create an input output chart that follows a given rule. And so that is exactly what we did today. And now it's your turn to practice on your own. Good luck. And remember, you can refer back to this video at any time. Also, if you're not finished with your notes, pause the video and you should be able to finish copying. Good luck. and enjoy your algebraic journey.